Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Leicestershire Police Federation podcast. My name is Royston Martis, and I'm joined from his penthouse. I'm assured it's not really his penthouse on Federation funds. From his penthouse, it's the fantastic chair of Leicestershire Police Federation, Andy Spence. Good day to you, Andy.
Good day. How you doing?
Yes, I'm all right, Andy. I'm all right. We've got a lot to talk about today, Andy. We're going to start talking about response policing because obviously it was Response Policing Week very recently. We're going to talk about police pay and the derisory offer of 2.5%, or not offer, the derisory request of 2.5% that the government want to give you. We're going to talk about the rest days that are owed to police officers and the fact that your miserly chiefs want to take their hands or get their hands on them, so hands off them. And then we're going to conclude by talking about the fantastic bravery shown by Leicestershire police officers each and every day and some specific incidents in particular. So without further ado, we're going to crack on. Andy, let's start off by talking about response policing. And Response Policing Week was, when we're recording this, it was last week. Why are response police officers so important to policing?
Response police officers are the cornerstone. They are the foundation of every single case. Every single case that comes in through that front door normally has response officers who turn up, and they're in those split seconds, spinning plates, juggling everything, trying to work out absolutely everything that's going on. They've got conflicting accounts coming in. They've got sometimes a collapsing timescale as well. They've got absolutely everything being thrown at them, all whilst their earpiece is going off. They're being asked to go to another case. They've got increasing crime queues that are going on, shifts abstracted, everything like that. They are the bread and butter. They are the absolute foundation of everything we deal with. And it's also where some of the most valuable work is ever that's gone on. If you think about every major incident, every serious incident, it always starts with the brave, heroic frontline officers who turn up, and they are dealing with those things week in, week out, all hours of the day and night.
Do you think response police officers are feeling a bit unloved at the moment, or do you know they're feeling a bit unloved?
We know they're feeling unloved. We know that response police officers, for a lot of them, it's a race to get off the front line. They're looking at that, what they do there, and they're going, right, I want to get off. I want to go and do a specialist role. I need to get away from this. And I'm not surprised, because they are working really, really long hours. They've got an increasing workload. They've got lots of things that are just thrown at them. They're expected to deal with a lot more, and they've got a lot less as well.
So what's the solution then? Because, as you say, we can't lose all these fantastic response officers doing all those things that you've just eloquently described to us. So how can we retain them in this, your colleagues in this really important role?
More needs to be done with the investment of that frontline service. We look at some of the specialist roles within policing, and there is time and training and investment done into those roles. But actually, we need to recognise that they all originate from response policing. That actually, if we invest back into that response policing, if we pour the time and the love and the money back into them, then we're going to get a lot more for it. I mean, the critics on the sidelines are very quick to point the finger and show the failings of the attending officers. And we've got people who sit down a year, 2 years, 5 years later, and they pore over the mistakes and the nuances of what things were and weren't done at the scene of incidents. But you've also got to remember, those officers are sometimes sent not knowing what they're going into, and sometimes they're going into one incident and they end up facing something far more serious, or things aren't quite as what they planned or whatever. We've got to respect that, and we've got to look at what they're dealing with day in, day out.
It's one way, and this links us nicely onto police pay as well. Like, it's one way, is it securing sort of better pay and conditions for them? Because, you've got, on one hand, you've got a focus from chiefs and the Federation and indeed the Home Office on response policing and Response Police Week. And in the next breath, chiefs and the Home Office are saying, actually, we only think these officers are worth another below inflation pay rise of 2.5%. That doesn't quite literally add up, does it?
No, it doesn't at all. And we've got to then look at the then knock-on effect of that, because 2.5%, it's no wonder we're seeing a mass walkout from police officers. It's no wonder we've got a huge number of police officers who are saying, I'm looking at leaving in the next 2 years. We've got external companies who are sat waiting for police officers to be confirmed in rank, and they are saying, yeah, come and work for us. You are now a trained investigator, you are now a PIP2 qualified, or you are this. We will quite happily take you. You can work Monday to Friday, you can do all of this. We actually need to increase the pay and make the conditions better. Those two go hand in hand. It's not just the increase in pay, it's the better work conditions. There isn't a job in the private sector where we can say to somebody, come and work for 40 grand a year, where you can expect to be assaulted, where you can expect to have your days off cancelled, where you can expect to not finish on time, where you can have all of these things. And by the way, you've got nothing at the end for it either. You know, if you want to turn up to your son's birthday with a black eye, if you want to miss your daughter's graduation because you've got broken finger, all of these things, you know, the death that the officers go to week in, week out, we see that. I was speaking to an officer recently, and in the space of a week, they went to 3 traumatic death incidents, which were not expected at all. And they're expected at the end of that just to carry on as if nothing's happened. But that will keep on adding up and keep on adding up. And at some point, officers will break.
Is it a simple sort of, listen, I'm literally no economist, but we hear of supply and demand, and the government will say, well, actually, in the last year, actually fewer police officers left policing in England and Wales than the previous year. So actually, we don't need to pay them a lot to retain them, because actually they're not walking out en masse. Is it quite that simple? Or do we need to show more? Why are they federations asked for 7 police, for our listeners and viewers, the National Police Federation has asked for 7% pay rise for police officers, and the government and the chiefs are saying 2.5%. So something's not agreeing here. People have got different views of what's needed.
7% is absolutely needed. We've got to look at the workforce that are going out to this. We've got to look at the high number of officers who are struggling day in, day out. The officers who've got a huge workload, they've got massive mental health issues as well. We've got to look at all of this and say, what do you want them to be paid? Where do you think they should be paid? What value do you put on your officers who are coming to that? And at the same time,
2.5% below inflation, 2.5%.
Yeah. So what do you expect as well? But 2.5% to a constable is not a lot. 2.5% to a chief officer rank is a lot more. And actually 7% is the right thing to do. It's the right thing for all the officers to recognise the dangers that they put themselves in. And it's not just our frontline service that put themselves at danger. We've got specialist roles such as firearms officers. We've got roles such as detectives who manage risk on a day-to-day basis. And that's why they need that extra money. It's to recognise the training that they put themselves through and recognise the stress and the pressure that they put themselves through every day.
Well, let's take this forward then, Andy. Let's work in a world post. Usually the announcement is, for our listeners and viewers, it's sort of end of July when the pay rise is announced for the 1st of September, which is when it would kick in. But in a world where you've asked for 7%, you give or are given 2.5%, what comes next? Because your members are not going to want to hear we're disappointed. Your members are not going to want to hear we're going to write a letter about this. They're going to want more. Now, I'm not asking you to commit to what you would do, but what can you do? What might you do?
There's a lot of options that are still on the table. We've asked and approached the membership about the next steps as part of that. There are various options that are available there with the Home Office that we would like to pursue as well. The other things that are there that we've got to look and say, well, okay, if you want 2.5%, okay, unless I need to stay on at 4 o'clock, I'm going home at 4 o'clock, and that is it. If you want my rest days to be cancelled, I'm sorry, I'm busy on those rest days. We've got to look and say, what is it the police service, what is the government wanting from the police service during all of that time?
Now, I'm not asking you to say this, and in fact, please don't. But what I'm hearing there is you pay less, you're going to get less. Now, don't nod. Andy, for our listeners, is not nodding. But that is a discussion, I think, that needs to be had, doesn't it? Because obviously, as a federation, you can't promote disaffection. But the police service relies on a lot of goodwill. Let's be very frank there, doesn't it?
Yeah, the police service now, and the expectation is we are looking for volunteers constantly. We're looking for volunteers to have their days off cancelled. We're looking for volunteers to do this. We're looking for people to help with this. Okay, that's great. Those things are all voluntary. Okay, it's a voluntary thing to do a lot of these things. Why is that then? And that is because police officers, they want to do the best. They want to help everybody, and the government needs to recognise that.
But the government do recognise that, and they take advantage of you by giving you rubbish pay rises.
Yeah, absolutely. And why is that? Because they're not going to be here in 4 years' time necessarily, or they might not be here in 4 years' time. It might not be their issue to deal with in 4 years' time. And we've got to look then and say, well, it then becomes the next person's problem. And the next government then blame the current government, and the current government are blaming the previous government.
So it sounds like there needs to be potentially, again, we could be way off the mark here, and you might get 5, 6, 7% pay rise. But the reality is, if you don't, it sounds like there's some difficult conversations need to be had. I think it's probably a fair thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, watch this space, listeners and viewers. We will re-look at this as the year 2026 continues. So we'll be in touch on that. But along these lines, and a really interesting sort of side product to this, what the chiefs have requested of the pay round, or paying conditions around. I guess it's not pay, but it is pay, because it's trying to attack what your members get paid for when they have their rest days cancelled. Talk us through what they're proposing and why you object to it.
Well, at the moment, what they're wanting to do is where an officer has their rest day disrupted by either finishing late and working into their rest day, is to have that allowance gone, or where they are having to have their whole rest day cancelled, have that allowance gone. That's not acceptable. Officers' rest days are as important as their work days. Those rest days are where officers need to decompress. They need to effectively switch off from work altogether. An officer will attend hundreds and hundreds of traumatic incidents. They will deal with compassion. They will have compassion fatigue potentially. They will deal with all of those things. So when they are out of work, they need to effectively down tools and not have to think about work, not have to be woken in the night with the nightmares of whatever they're going through at work and what have you. So by removing those rest days and those allowances, they're effectively got the carte blanche to be able to wreck officers' rest days up and down the year all over. And
without proper compensation, and that's the other thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so where an officer is thinking, right, on that Saturday, on my one weekend in 4 that I've got off, or one of those weekends there that I can actually do something with my family, or I can go away. No, you can't, not anymore. Thanks very much. I would now want you to work on this, or there's this that's come up. That's not acceptable at all.
And there's no, as I understand it, and it is a relatively complex, but it isn't that complex situation. They would literally be able to cancel your rest day. You could then book a babysitter or have to book childcare or whatever it might be, and then they could go, oh, actually, we don't need you anymore, and they wouldn't have to pay anything. That's also on the table, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no financial compense that comes back with that at all.
So it's an invitation, open goal to bad management as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, you've got to manage people. People have got to be good managers of looking and planning ahead. And we all know that, yes, there are certain things within policing where you can't account for and you can't plan for, and I completely get all that. But equally, you've got to be able to respect people's private life, and you've got to be able to respect their days off.
So what are you as a federation doing better? What can you do about it?
We've gone back to the PRRB through the National Federation to say this is not acceptable. This is not on at all. We have to remember the people who are suggesting this, they were also constables. They didn't suggest it when they were constables. They wouldn't have entertained this, 20 years ago or so. This is now okay when they're suggesting it, not okay for us. The people at the sharp end, the really good response officers I was just talking about, they are the people most likely to be affected by this. The people who, on their Saturdays, or because the football match is now on a Saturday, not a Sunday, I'm sorry, but 100 people need to work it. No, that's not acceptable at all.
So your message to members on this, Andy, because this seems to have annoyed and angered a lot of colleagues, a lot of frontline officers.
Tell us about it. Tell us the effect it would have on you. By all means, write to your local MP. Tell them about it. Tell them the effect it would have on you as well. Give them the real life experience of what having your day off at the weekend cancelled looks like. About when you're meant to finish work at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're still there at 9 o'clock in the morning, where you're watching your sleep clock just drop down and down and down, where your 3 days off are now becoming 2 days off. Tell them about those effects.
Okay, well, we again follow this one with interest, because I think it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? If it does come in, and it's a recipe for bad management as well. So those two things will be watched, and we don't want to be saying "I told you so" either, do we? So you lose those sorts of protections at your peril, I think is a fair point as well. Andy, we'll finish on a brighter note, because there is some brightness. Not much, but there is some, and we'll talk about the fantastic bravery of your colleagues, and we're not just talking about specific colleagues. 99.99% across the board every day are displaying incredible bravery, but you've had to choose an incident, some officers, to be your nominations for the National Police Bravery Awards, which take place in London in July. Now, given their operational roles, we can't name them, but just tell us what you can tell us about their incredible work.
Well, the two officers were called to an incident regarding a stabbing. They are in a firearms-based role, so they are already specially trained, and they turned up to a woman who was lying in the street, who'd been stabbed in front of a number of other people. One of them provided her first aid, and the other one walked towards the house to try and find the suspect. And he was then confronted by the suspect holding a knife. Now, we've got to remember that these officers, they are carrying lethal options. But actually, the really easy thing for people who aren't trained to use firearms or those type of things would be to say, I'll pick it up, and he could be shot, or he could do this or whatever. But actually, the skills that they used there to try and disarm him, and they've tried taser a number of times, they've tried this. And then he's reached towards it again. And these officers, they've had to rugby tackle him while he's got the knife. And while they're having to do that, they are stood between him, a man who it would later be found he's killed somebody in the street, and the rest of the public. And the fear and everything else that they would have gone through at that point there, putting themselves in harm's way to protect the public behind them, and do everything else. It's absolutely huge, honestly. And that type of work there, yes, it was very difficult to choose from all the nominees this year that we had, but that is just a glimpse of the brave actions that these officers do on a day-to-day basis.
Incredible work, Andy. And again, perhaps I think you alluded to there, in many, many, many other countries in the world, that person would have been shot and killed and wouldn't have faced justice. But what they managed to do was keep him alive, so he faces, account for his crimes.
Absolutely. We don't have to look very far for how other countries would have dealt with this. And actually, that could have been something. It could have been a very, very different outcome. And I don't think anybody could have criticised the officers. But equally, what they've done there is they've put themselves at harm's way, and they've had to make really, really difficult choices, and they've brought him to justice in the right way.
Incredible work. Well, we look forward to celebrating them in July. We'll work on them. We'll try and get some publicity out of them at some point. We'll work on them, but if not, they're fantastic efforts will be recognised either way. Andy, thank you so much for your time in the latest Leicester Police Federation podcast. And we look forward to the next edition very soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.